me talking too much is going to be part of this, but great. So now it's on the record. So I guess in the introduction here, let me introduce myself to anybody who doesn't know who I am. I'm Ed. I'm going to be a section lead along with Adam Hinckley, who is not here. I think he's going to be jumping in a little bit later. And also Sabrina, Student Success over here. Our instructors are Brian Doyle and Joshua Howland, as most of you know. And we'll also have Alice, who some of you have met, Alice Karsvar, who will also be doing some of the instruction. So starting on Monday, we have the, provided we have everybody sign up for a group. We're still figuring that out right now. But by the start of Monday, we will have an entire I think it's 20, how many projects do we have again, Sabrina? 25 now?
I think 25.
25 or 26, yeah. So it's going to be a mixture of 25 or 26, depending on the stragglers that come in at the very end. And usually Monday, I'll just get this out of the way right now. Monday through Wednesday are going to be probably the worst days of labs. Just full disclosure, just because of the fact that there's a lot of setup, there's a lot of overhead, there's a lot of what's the expression? Chickens with their heads cut off. It's always chickens. It's never any other animal. But like, there's a lot of confusion before the groups begin to settle into their rhythm, until they know what they're doing, until as you no doubt are probably aware of, the first week of labs can be kind of it's not as straightforward. And but by the time Wednesday comes around, everybody kind of locks in and the teams are good to go once we start getting the product canvas down, the technical design document, the TDD. Once that's settled, then it's smooth sailing from there. Not that it's easy, you'll run into a lot of challenges, but I think just brace yourself for the first couple days of the week. Casey, who is our former section lead for Labs 10 and Labs 11, who will be departing. I think Casey also has some things that she wants to chime in with here.
Yes, and hopefully you guys can hear me over my air conditioning. Summer is on its way. So I'm going to share my screen real quick even. So there's a lot more documentation this time around, thanks to our beautiful new instructor, Alice. We had a lot of this in the Google Doc, and a lot of it spread around, so we'll be giving you this nice Notion document. This is going to have all of the links that you need pretty much for the Airtable views, the Airtable forms. We have your daily schedule here to follow. The only thing I would note is that Labs is constantly growing and evolving and changing, so a lot of these things are subject to change. I recommend checking the Labs calendar like multiple times a day, just in case something is different. But essentially, you'll be having stand-up meetings with your groups. You'll have a stand-up meeting with all the project managers where you report progress, attendance issues, that sort of thing, to the section lead and the instructor. And then most of the time, just kind of facilitating communication between your teams, offering support when necessary, and directing them to like where they would find support elsewhere. One thing that we've been trying to overhaul and make much better is the escalation process. So we have the escalation policy in the training handbook, and then we'll be using this document. Oh, that's the current one. Here's the template. So we'll be using this to track all of the absences. So we'll have it split up by group. I'm not sure how Ed and Adam are going to prefer to do this, because they're the ones that are going to need to be reading it. But I'd recommend having one sheet for the each instructor group.
Which I'm totally on board with, by the way.
Yeah. And you should be able to just like copy paste or change these as needed, and there's documentation here about how to use it. But essentially, you'll just tally what they've missed, and it's going to alert you that, oh, well, if they missed a standout, that's the first thing they've missed, then you can go here and it's a level 1. Just so you're never really confused about what you should be doing, how you should be responding to things. And then you can add escalation levels in here for things that are unrelated to attendance, just to keep them on your radar. Because obviously if someone's at an escalation 3 for behavior and they have 1 absence, that's a little bit higher than just the verbal warning. And then with each absence, or you can also do it for other escalations, just fill out these fields. Oops, I'll be fixing this, so there'll be a checkbox there. But you'll just put the date, the student's name, your name, whether or not the student has been in contact with you. There should never be a situation where you haven't reached out to them. So just if they've responded, then check it. You can note what they missed if it was an attendance issue, and then there will be a drop down for what level escalation they're on. If it's an action plan or a personal improvement plan, which action plans are at level 2 in a meeting with Sabrina, and a personal improvement plan is level 3 in a meeting with the instructor. Just put a link there and keep that link updated as the person fills out their side of it. And then you can put in specific details. Maybe someone had it's excused, you can put why it was excused. And if they come back online later, then you can put the updates here. And then there's some other slides here which you won't have to spend much time in later on, but I'd recommend just filling them out the first couple of days. Section leads might do this. You can just literally type whatever and it'll do all the formatting for you. For that. And then if you guys could put your information, because Brian and the instructors are always trying to track down emails from everyone. Pretty self-explanatory. For specialties, just if you have something that you're familiar with that isn't taught in the regular curriculum, you can put that there, just so if someone else is using it, someone else's group, then they can check this and be like, oh, Michael's super good at GraphQL, so maybe he'll know how to help this person. This is very, very helpful for student success when they have to do the badging at the end, and you're going to end up collecting this information from students the first couple of days anyway, in the first week. So if you keep this updated for Sabrina, that makes her job about 10 times easier. You'll have to collect the custom domain names and badge descriptions towards week 4 and 5. And this is for Brian to just be able to grab this information, I think student success as well, much more easily than trying to track it down from 10,000 DMs. And then we have these links. So there's a link to the lab specific handbook, the regular handbook, checklists for code reviews. Code reviews are a little bit less in-depth in labs than in, if any of you have been PMs before. I think Brian had suggested once doing an audit system, choosing a random pull request each day and being much more in depth with that. But in general, just at least try to give them a once over, make sure there are no really glaring errors in there. And then you can look at things more closely when you're doing the sprint reviews to see if the contributions were significant, that sort of thing. The tracking document you guys should be familiar with. That's where you're going to update your group's progress. These are all the Slack keywords I know of. If you know of any other ones that are helpful, let us know and we can add them onto here. And just in general, if there's anything about any of these documents, anything in the handbook that's confusing or unclear or wrong or anything, let us know. None of this is sacred and we want to improve it. So the Monday board is where we put the escalations and the project help requests. Those are the ones for the instructors. The PIP template is here for level 3s. We have playlists now for past demos, certain walkthroughs, and past check-ins. If your students want an example of how to do their planning or progress check-ins, you can go back and find your own groups, or you can look at other groups in there. PM candidates, if you want to recommend any students to be a PM next time. loaner device request if any of your students are having technical difficulties, and lastly, the check-in rubric. And just so you know, this does have, I already had it open. This also has the rubric for data science. I'm not sure how they're handling the, I don't even remember how we're doing the project managers for data science, but they have slightly different rubric. So that's pretty much it for the documentation. And a lot of the rest of it is just going to be, you know, the general daily schedule, and then kind of going with the flow as things change and are improved. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Ed?
Yeah, definitely. I think going back to the rubric that we had for check-ins,
Mhm.
I find that most of the time when you're doing your check-ins, which happen twice a week, once on Monday and once on Friday, where you have your planning check-in on Monday and then your assessment for sprint review on Friday. I find that having these rubrics just open on a screen share with your students is very, very helpful, just to so you can directly assess as a team together. You know, let's talk about what it is that we're looking at. If it's Friday, for example, you know, if I'm meeting with the team, I'll say like, okay, so here we are, front end web and mobile, front end server is deployed with a recognizable name, able to return simple page. You know, that way, it took me a couple weeks to get around to that, but I found that was so much more helpful for just like not having to remember what it is I'm looking for on week 1 or week 3. You know, I thought that I had them memorized, but as it turns out, I didn't. So, and now it's formatted a lot nicer. It used to be a really difficult Google Doc, and now it's all kind of centralized on this Notion. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to add in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's, in general in the handbook, there's a lot of good, like we've got tutorials in here about the Git workflow, about the PR templates, about the organizations. So I think you guys are in a much better place than some past cohorts with having much more comprehensive and easy to understand resources here. And then you'll be in Ed's very capable hands as well. So that's going to help a lot. And a lot of the rest of PMing, I think, comes down to the nuances of like managing style and different approaches like that, which is something that you'll get to dive a little deeper into during the PM trainings on Wednesdays, which I think even if you're starting, yeah, we discussed it, even if you're starting not next week, you can start hopping into the training starting next week so that you can kind of get a head start on picking up some new skills for the fresh groups that'll come in later. Does anyone have any questions at all, either about process, about approach, about anything we went over, or anything else?
I might have missed this, and you guys probably talked about it, but how are these projects going to be decided? Like what group gets what project? Or do we have to submit possible projects for groups to work on?
So the students have a sign-up exercise that they're doing right now, or are supposed to be doing. And then, yeah, and then the PM assignments for like the fresh projects coming in are randomly assigned that you'll be able to trade with each other if you have a strong preference. And then for those of you that are starting later, you'll be, I think we've got everyone PMing their own flex group for the first week or two, depending on what week your group is in. So it's kind of a complicated answer, but we can look at, if you're confused still, we can look at you specifically if you want to reach out to either me or Ed after this.
Yeah, here's one thing about that is kind of confusing that I can just address right away, is that the reason why we have some groups starting later or starting on time is because of the fact that, as most of you might know that have been through labs, that sometimes if you find yourself not passing a sprint for a week, you'll repeat that week. you'll flex that week so you can really nail it down. And because of that, some uh, some project managers that were hired on are still with their teams, um, and so there's kind of this overlap of PMs that are ready to start right away versus like also on the other side of it, you have some students coming from web or computer science that are also in flex. So this is our way of trying to be able to cover everybody, and it does work out pretty well in terms of PMs that are flexing versus groups that are flexing. So
Gotcha.
that's why we have some groups that are.
Yeah, that's the only part I was confused about, because I think my group is right. I'm in labs right now, and we're like 2 weeks behind.
Well, you started a week later, and then you guys flexed a week, so
Yep.
that's part of it. That's another reason too, is that you kind of have this overlap of groups that will start in labs 12 that are starting a week or two later. So it's maybe eventually over time this could turn into a 42 car pileup, but right now I think it's working out pretty well.
I'll trust the process.
Trust the process. Just as a brief overview, I know that we're gonna like have 100 different like meetings to go over all this, but like maybe we could just let's say in 3 minutes, let's try to just summarize exactly what your day is like. So when we start on Monday, you are assigned two groups. I believe most PMs have two groups. And so in the mornings when you have your morning stand-ups, it's up to you to decide which group you want to have first, which group you have second. But typically we have a little bit longer for people that maybe did labs earlier. We now have an hour and a half to do our stand-ups of both groups, which is pretty generous time-wise. I think that's a lot of time to, if you have a group that maybe takes a little bit longer, they want to talk more, versus groups that are just kind of like, yeah, we're done, just let us work. You can assess like what kind of dynamic you have with those groups. But so you'll have stand up with both your groups, and then it's a little bit hairy the first week because there's so much assessment, there's so much setting things up, setting up a Trello board, setting up a GitHub. These will be your responsibilities as a project manager of getting that all lined up for your groups. And thankfully, it's only going to be for your two groups. So but that first week entails having the Trello set up for them and then giving them the invite links. It involves setting up the GitHub repository, the GitHub organization, I should say, and then inviting them with that. And I'm gonna be doing a meeting with all the PMs. I think on Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday, where I'll just like go over for a half hour how to set that up, because it's a little bit tricky. There's documentation in here too, but and so after that's all set up, the first week is essentially just kind of drawing blueprints. Like you're not going to have your students. A lot of you already know this, but you're not like getting into the code until probably Thursday or Friday. You're probably not going to be pushing code until early Friday. But then moving forward from that, once you get into week 2, week 3, it's a lot more streamlined where, same thing, your stand-ups in the morning. We're going to have a PM stand-up with the section lead. So Adam and I will get together with all the PMs are split in half. So one half goes to Adam, the other half goes to me. And we'll just discuss what's going on with the teams, talk about the PR counts, just to surmise some kind of idea of where they are and at what point maybe we should start getting worried, or at what point we could just let them go and do their own thing. Some groups they'll fly out the gate and you don't have to worry about them. Other groups can be a little bit more tricky, and it's not a babysitting thing, but like you got to keep your eye on them, just because maybe they're not going to tell you if something's not going right. It's hard for groups to assess those first couple of weeks of just like, yeah, we'll be ready by Friday, but then come Thursday night, you might get a surprise where it turns out they're not going to be ready on Friday. So that's a good reason why we have the PM stand up, so you can kind of just talk with your SL, talk to the other PMs about just like, should I be worried about this, that the Stripe API isn't set up yet, or things like that. I'm running into this issue with the material UI. Does anybody else have that, et cetera, et cetera. And from that point, by the time we're done with our stand up, it's like maybe another half hour or an hour before the lunch break happens. So step away from your machine, you know, eat something, get off a screen for a couple minutes, and then once we come back, typically after week 2, it's just project time. It's all just working on the project, and so you're expected to jump in with them. I'm not saying hound them on the Zoom, but there is a Zoom open. It's good every now and again just to pop in and just see how things are going. Too much of that is a bad thing. Not enough is also a bad thing. So it's all about a sweet spot. But just trying to assess what's going on and staying chummy with your group. And then I guess like really the meat and potatoes of the week comes on Friday. And it's this the end of it is on Friday we're going to, as you know, the developer journal, you're going to have your students submit to you after their Airtables and everything. Once they submit their daily Airtable and then send you the developer journal, then you can just start compiling your list of like a queue basically of how you're going to do your check-ins. So between 2 groups, typically that's like 10 to 12 students. So each one, some go longer than others, but if I had to like ballpark it, it's about 15 minutes. So that adds up. That's a couple hours. That's a few hours. So they usually have a meeting at the end of the day. So typically you kind of want to get those going. Maybe you can get 1 or 2 done before lunch, hopefully, but really normally how it goes, students will kind of drag their feet when it comes to submitting the dev journal because they're writing it Friday morning. But if you get started right after lunch, that should leave you with enough time to get through everything before the end of the day. Usually on Fridays, there's a show and tell meeting wherein students obviously they display what they did for the week. And I should say that like it's not the end of the world if like don't get comfortable with it, but don't psych yourself out if you're not gonna have enough time to get through all of them. That happened to me a couple times when I was PMing, just because I would spend too long with them. If that's the case, then if you can take care of it Monday morning, it's not ideal, and like don't get into the habit of doing it, but that is an option. And the rest of it, that'll be saved for when we have these meetings on Monday. But just kind of want to give you like a broad overview of how it goes throughout the week.
While we're on the topic of sprints also, Fridays can be kind of hectic, and it's super common for people to, especially with like Airtable being kind of unreliable, although we're getting our own Airtable base for labs now, or you are since I'm leaving. So Airtable should be a little bit more reliable, but sometimes when it's getting overloaded, we'll forget to actually submit the forms for the reviews. So often Sabrina or Terry will come in on Monday and drop a list of all the missing sprint reviews that still need to be submitted. It's super helpful if you guys can look through those and see if any of you are yours that might be dupes or might be ones that you've forgotten, and just try to take care of those by the end of the week. That makes things a little bit easier for everyone.
Yeah, especially like towards week 3, week 4, that list can get a little extraneous and so if everybody just grabs like 2 or 3, it only takes a couple minutes, and even if they're not students of yours, like it definitely helps Terry out. That's all I have personally. I don't know about you, Casey.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else that's specific to go over, because a lot of it is just getting in and doing it. Are there any other questions or concerns that anyone has?
Yeah, we'll go into depth a lot more come Monday, come Tuesday, come Wednesday. It'll be all kinds of insight from Brian and Joshua and Alice and everybody else.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you have any questions, you can DM me or Ed, and starting next week, probably Ed or Adam. But I'll still answer questions if you have them for me. All right.
So I'm Adam. So
hi.
I'm not sure if I just came across this meeting by accident, I think. I'm not sure that was required to be here, but I figured I'd at least pop in and say, hey. So it's cool to see some familiar faces. I'm fired up to work with Ed. I know he's a rock star. So And Kevin PM for me, or not in our group at 14. So it's good to see you again.
Yeah, Kevin was actually my PM for web too.
Yeah, good to see some familiar faces here, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that'll make it like, I don't know, I'm really excited. I'm going to be bugging Ed for updates and stuff from Labs 12 to see how it's going.
And I'm not going to answer anything.
Oh, all right. I'm out of the cool kids club now.
This got weird.
All right. Well, we'll let you guys get back to whatever it is you would prefer to be doing with the rest of your afternoon. And again, if you have any questions, just ask. We're always here, very responsive. Have a great day.
All right,
Bye.
squad. Good to meet y'all. See you on Monday.